You carry Neanderthal DNA right now. If you're of non-African descent, somewhere between 1 and 4% of your genome came from them. Let that sink in. We didn't just replace them, we absorbed them. And yet they're gone, completely gone while we're here, building skyscrapers and arguing on the internet. But here's the question that should genuinely disturb you. What if they never went extinct? What if right now there were two kinds of humans on this planet? That's not science fiction. That almost happened. And the answer to what the world would look like is stranger, darker, and more fascinating than anything Hollywood has ever put on screen. First, let's kill the caveman myth, because you've been lied to your entire life. The image of the hunched, grunting, dim-witted brute, dragging a club. That came from a single badly reconstructed skeleton in 1908. A skeleton that, it turned out, belonged to an old man with severe arthritis. That mistake shaped how we saw Neanderthals for nearly a century. The real picture is far more unsettling. Neanderthals had brains that were on average larger than ours, not slightly measurably, consistently larger. They made tools sophisticated enough to require multi-step planning. They crafted jewelry from eagle talons and pigmented shells. They buried their dead with flowers, which means they had rituals, which means they thought about death. They likely had language. Some evidence even suggests they had music. And they survived for over 400,000 years. For context, modern human civilization is maybe 6,000 years old. Neanderthals endured ice ages, volcanic winters, and megafauna that would give you nightmares. They were not stupid. They were not weak. So why did they disappear right around the time we showed up? That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. Here's what the mainstream story leaves out. Neanderthals didn't just quietly fade away. Genetic evidence published in 2022 shows their population was already declining for thousands of years. Before Homo sapiens arrived in Europe, possibly due to inbreeding from small, isolated groups. But then we showed up, and whatever was left of their world collapsed within a few thousand years. Was it genocide, disease, competition for food? Almost certainly a brutal combination of all three. Homo sapiens brought new pathogens that Neanderthals had no immunity to, the same dynamic that decimated indigenous populations when Europeans arrived in the Americas. We also had bigger social networks, which meant better trade, better information sharing, better coordination during crisis. A Neanderthal band of 10 to 30. Individuals couldn't compete economically or militarily, with Homo sapiens groups that numbered in the hundreds. And here's the dark twist: we didn't just outcompete them, we bred with them, repeatedly. Which means at some point Neanderthals and Homo sapiens were close enough in biology and behavior to find each other attractive. These weren't two alien species. They were cousins, dangerously close cousins. So let's say one thing changes. Let's say Homo sapiens never develop that slight edge in immune resilience, or their social networks don't scale quite as fast, or a volcanic winter hits Europe 42,000 years ago, leveling the playing field. Neanderthals survive. Now what? The first thing that happens is interbreeding accelerates massively. Instead of occasional contact, you get sustained coexistence across Europe and the Middle East. Over thousands of years, the genetic boundary blurs. You don't get two separate species forever, you get a spectrum. A hybrid human population with varying traits from both lineages. Larger brow ridges, wider nasal passages built for cold air, but also Homo sapiens' fine motor dexterity and long-distance social bonding. The result? Potentially something more physically robust and cognitively diverse than either species alone. But that's the optimistic read. The pessimistic read is that coexistence triggers constant grinding resource conflict. Europe is cold, food is scarce, two apex predators hunting the same megafauna in the same territory? History doesn't give us much reason for optimism there. The more likely scenario looks less like peaceful coexistence and more like a patchwork of uneasy border tensions. Think less Garden of Eden, more Cold War with spears. Here's where things get genuinely wild. Agriculture is the foundation of every civilization on Earth. Without it, no cities, no writing, no technology as we know it. And agriculture requires a very specific set of cognitive and social behaviors. Long-term planning, delayed gratification, massive cooperation across unrelated individuals. Homo sapiens evolved those traits partly because of our hyper-social nature. Neanderthals, based on what we know, were more localized, more individual band-focused. So does a hybrid human species still develop agriculture on the same timeline? Maybe later, maybe never in certain regions. Maybe it emerges first in the Middle East, which is where the genetic evidence suggests the heaviest interbreeding occurred but doesn't spread as rapidly. You could be looking at a world where the agricultural revolution happens 5,000 years later than it did. That single delay cascades into everything. The Roman Empire, delayed by millennia. The Industrial Revolution, maybe not until the 1800s by our calendar, but the 4800s in theirs, or never. Alternatively, and this is the thought that keeps anthropologists up at night, Neanderthal traits might have actually accelerated certain kinds of innovation. Their brains were larger in the occipital and parietal regions, associated with visual spatial processing. They may have had extraordinary abilities in 3D spatial reasoning. In a world where that cognitive style is mixed into the gene pool at scale, does engineering and architecture develop faster? Does navigation? Does art? Some researchers think Neanderthal artistic traditions influenced early Homo sapiens cave paintings. Imagine what that cross-pollination looks like at full scale. This is the question nobody wants to ask, but everyone should. If two visually distinct human species exist into the modern era, what does human social hierarchy look like? Because if there's one thing Homo sapiens has demonstrated across every civilization in history, it's that we will find a reason to rank each other. We do it with skin color, with language, with religion. Now imagine we do it with species. The history of colonialism, slavery, and genocide didn't require a different species. We did all of that to other Homo sapiens. The presence of an actual biological, other one that looks different, speaks differently, has different cultural practices would have given every impulse toward tribalism and domination a new and arguably more powerful target. The most disturbing timeline isn't one where Neanderthals are wiped out again. It's one where they survive, but spend the next 10,000 years as a permanent underclass, second species citizens, living in the margins of a Homo sapiens-dominated world. That's not speculation. That's just pattern recognition, based on what we actually know about human behavior. Here's the truth that this thought experiment forces you to confront. The world didn't end up with two human species because of some natural inevitability. It ended up with one because of us. Whether through violence, disease, or assimilation, Neanderthals were erased, and we carry the proof in our own DNA. Every drop of Neanderthal ancestry in your genome is a ghost of a species we consumed. So the next time someone tells you that human progress is inevitable, or that our dominance is some kind of cosmic destiny, remember? There was another kind of human. They survived 400,000 years. They felt things. They buried their dead. They made music. And they're gone. And we're the reason why. That's a yesterday secret worth knowing. If this hit you differently than you expected, drop a comment below. What part of this messed you up the most? Like the video? If you want more deep dives into the histories that actually shaped us, and subscribe to Yesterday's Secret, because the past isn't done with you yet.